Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of CN Meets. I'm Martin Fullard, and today I am joined by a very familiar face. Not only is he the Chief Operating Officer of Realise, he's also a long-standing conference news columnist who actually probably is supporting this bookshelf behind me. Welcome to Richard John. How are you, Richard?
I'm fantastic, Marty. Thank you so much for that lovely welcome, and I'm deeply honoured to see such weighty tomes holding up MASH towers there.
Absolutely. Let's hope it doesn't collapse while we're in the middle of this interview. Otherwise, that would be comedy you couldn't write. Okay, so I brought you on today to talk about a couple of things, really. But I think, first of all, I wanted to talk to you about the cash incentives that you're offering people with ideas. All right. Now, that might sound like a dream come true, perhaps even nonsense to most people watching. But I thought I'd give you the opportunity to just talk us through what it is you're offering and how it relates to your presence at International Confex, which, for the record, is starting on the 22nd of June this year.
Thank you very much. Yeah, you see, what I should say is that I suppose effectively Realise has had a good pandemic because we've, cliche alert, we've pivoted to supporting lots of organizations doing online events. The good thing is we've been able to help probably about 50 freelancers who we've been able to use to deliver a whole host of projects. And we realize that this is going to make us sound far more noble than we probably are, but we realize we're very, very privileged and that a lot of the industry has taken such a beating that we thought it would be great if we could give something back. So my business partner, David Preston, and I were talking about this, and we thought that some kind of award, less award, more prizes, actually physical cash prizes, would maybe encourage people to think about what ideas could they put together as we come out of this horrible pandemic? And it was partly driven by the fact that a couple of people with ideas approached us so that we were acting as mentors. And they were asking if they could pay us, but sort of in the long run. And we came up with this idea that, well, we can put some, if you like, sweat equity into their events or their ideas. And if they go anywhere, then we will reap the rewards. But if they don't, then it's not an issue. And from that, we thought, well, wouldn't it be great if we could just encourage the whole of the industry, those who are in the industry, those who are learning about being part of the industry, maybe doing a university course, even people who've been to an event and thought there's a way we could do this slightly better, if they were to put their ideas down on paper and submit them, and we'll just see if any of those have any merit. So we've got 4 cash prizes of £1, £2, £3 and £4,000 that we will be handing out, no strings, at Confex to the people who've submitted what we think are the best ideas.
Fascinating. So I'm not sure how much are we allowed to give away? What sort of ideas are coming in now? What have you got?
It's a really good question, because when we first put together the platform, I was thinking, well, shall I ask people to sort of categorize their idea? And then we thought, well, that in itself is a bit limiting. So what we've said is, you have an idea, write it down, submit it. It could be a Word document, it could be a PowerPoint presentation, and we're open to any suggestions. The suggestions that have come in include concepts for new consumer shows. There's a couple of ideas for new business shows. There are some new apps suggested. There are some pop-up events. There are just a whole host of ideas that are really quite creative. And you can see that people have put a lot of thought into this. And I think one of the reasons is they stand a better chance of winning with our innovation awards than they certainly do with the lottery.
So, why are you doing this kind of now? Was COVID the catalyst? Is this something you've kind of always wanted to do? Why is now the time to do this?
Well, when you look back through sort of commercial history, you often see that it's during recessions that most new companies are launched. So there is something about adversity that if a company or if a business can get off the ground in these circumstances, they can thrive pretty much at any time. But some of it also goes back to a kind of personal experience. So when I was young and had hair like you, that's many, many decades ago, and I worked for a couple of exhibition organizers. And I've always been a creative person. So I would say, I've got this idea for a new exhibition. And I was often told, great idea, Richard, go and make it happen. And my response was, I don't want to. It's too much like hard work. There are people who are much better at selling and organizing than I will ever be. I'm an ideas person. Here's the idea, take it and go away, and I'll do something else. And what would often happen is the idea would sort of wither on the vine, because we have this culture that says, if you're the person with the idea, it's down to you to then make it happen. And a lot of business incubation units exist for precisely that. Here's your idea, take it to market. Well, what if you don't want to do that? What if you just want to give your idea and maybe reap a little bit of the reward at the end? So that's why we've set up these innovation prizes. And what will happen is that no strings attached, as I mentioned, we'll be handing out £10,000 in cash. But every idea that we get, we will review on its merit. Our judges will be looking at them. And if we think that there's a kernel of a good idea, we will offer the person who comes up with that idea any support they want. If they want us to take the idea and see if we can take it to market, we will. If they want to be involved, then so be it. But if they just want to hand it over, then that's absolutely fine. The one sort of caveat I'll say is, there's this wonderful expression that success is, was it 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration? So if you give us an idea and we make it work at some stage, don't expect that you're going to receive 90% of the profits, because that's not how life works. But you could receive a little chunk. And it may only be a small slice, but the famous story about the guy who decorated Mark Zuckerberg's offices at Facebook and was given some shares. I mean, it's a fantastic story. So, that's what we'd encourage people to think. I mean, it's really about, we know we work in a hugely exciting, creative, innovative industry. Let's see those ideas come to the fore.
Yeah, you worried me there for a moment when you started talking about wallpaper and decorating, because you promised me you were going to stay away from politics. So that's the story a little bit too close to comfort for something else that's happening in the moment. So down. Okay, I'm going to ask a random question. Maybe one you can't even answer, but I'm sure you'll give it a good go. I'm a big fan of Dragon's Den. I love watching it. And I'm always fascinated by the bravery, shall we say, of some of the people who go before the dragons with what they think is a very good idea. I was watching it last night, and there was a couple who had created circus equipment for guinea pigs. Niche in the market, I'll give them that. And at some point, they must have thought that was a really good idea, but the dragons weren't convinced. It didn't fly at all. I mean, are there any sort of easy tell-alls tips on how to kind of conceive a good idea, maybe particularly through the context of what we're doing in the world of events?
I think it's a very fair question. And what I'd say is I too love Dragon's Den, although when I watch it, I often think how unrealistic it is that people are expected to be able to remember these complex numbers and calculations without referring to any notes. So we have a panel of judges who, frankly, are much, much nicer, I would say. But one of the things I would say is that if you have an idea, this is the really challenging thing. People want to know where ideas come from. So I'll often use a couple of examples. I won't verge into politics when I mention James Dyson. So James Dyson, vacuum cleaner bears his name, but his first success was something called the ball barrow, which is a wheelbarrow with a ball. Now, what happened was he was gardening, his wheelbarrow fell over, and whereas most of us would just swear and reach for the shovel, he decided to make the wheelbarrow better by nicking his child's football and shoving it underneath. And to me, that's just a degree of brilliance. But you don't always have to come up with something completely new. I mean, imagine you walk into a shopping precinct and there are 10 different coffee shops. Some people would think, wow, the last thing I do is open a coffee shop because there are already 10 competitors. And some people have the attitude of, do you know what? People really like coffee here. So if I could come up with a different slant, then there's an opportunity. Maybe I'd create a coffee shop that wouldn't allow any children in because, I hate to be having a cup of coffee and there's a child there. That's because I'm grumpy and bad-tempered. But I think one of the things I would say is don't be frightened. Don't be put off by this kind of what we've seen on Dragon's Den of people being intimidated. It's usually much better to take the approach of not that's a terrible idea, but well, let's have a look at this idea and let's look at the pitfalls, but let's see what could be done with it. And that's why I'd encourage people to just get the ideas down on the back of a metaphorical fag packet, give it to a couple of chums. And if they just say, this is a pretty good idea, submit it because you've got nothing to lose.
Fascinating. So then, Richard, let's wrap it up. Tell us, how can people get involved and submit their ideas to you?
Excellent. Well, there's a website we've created, and it is www.12, the number 12, R prizes. So it's 12rprizes.com. And if you go there, you'll see that the Realise Innovation Prize is the big one at the moment. So you can click on it and enter it, or you can have a little click and just go and have a look and see what entries are up there at the moment. So I'd encourage people to go and have a look, and maybe they'll be inspired. You can vote on other ideas. So the judges will be looking to see what level of support the public have given, but you might look at an idea and that'll inspire you to come up with something else. So we'll be taking into account what the public say, but hopefully it will spur people to come up with their own ideas.
No doubt it will. And we'll make sure what we'll do is we'll pop the link to that website in the description of this video. Richard, I'm going to let you crack on because I think you've probably got another shelf of magazines to fill. So thanks so much for chatting.
Great seeing you. Thank you very much.